How you doing? So, we just had something on the forum. It's called an update to balancing MCOC. So what it is, it's basically they're going to be talking about buffs and nerfs when it comes to champions as well as new champions coming out. So here are my thoughts when it comes to the balance update. So I'm not gonna read everything, so you can go to the forum, you know, Marvel Contest of Champions, and you can see it for yourself. So let me just go about. It says here, enter MCOC brand new ability rating system. This is probably my favorite thing out of this. So what it is basically, let me read some part of it. It says, one huge piece of feedback we have received from a wide range of summoners is that currently it's hard to know what is and what is not intended when it comes to champion balance. This can cause confusion amongst the players based when champions behave in new or peculiar ways. Starting in March, we will be adding a brand new 5-point ability rating system to all champions in the game. So, what does it look like? We will be rating champions on a few different aspects of their abilities and general strength and weaknesses. While we are still hammering down the details, we are currently looking to implement ratings. So they have four different categories. One is damage output, survivability, utility, and ease of use. So that can change, but that those four can most likely going to be in it for sure. So, for example, Call of Obsidian is a great champion with high damage output, but not as much as utility. So he would have a 5 out of 5 in damage, but closer to a 1 or 2 for utility. Magic, on the other hand, is champion with high utility and ease of use, but a lower damage rating. Before, what is this? They actually changed this. They first had Hercules instead of Call Obsidian, because Hercules had 5 out of 5 damage, but only 2 or 2.5 in utility. And I guess a lot of people were upset by that. And because a lot of people are Hercules fan. And it's funny because Magic got a 5 in utility, but Herc got 2.5 at the highest for utility. So it doesn't really make sense. I think Hercules Unawakened would be like a 2, but then if you have him at max sig, he's like a 4. So I don't think it's kind of hard to know how they rank the champion as far as utility wise, because you know I guess that could be part of his survivability as far as his armor, his signature ability, but he is also unblockable if he's for X amount of time. So I do think if you think about if they're rating each champion as max sig or something like that, Hercules is definitely higher than 2.5. Is I would say a 4, at least a 4. I'd probably at least a 4 if I had to say for Hercules when it comes to utility. So what they did is they changed it. They, instead of Hercules, it's called Obsidian instead of Hercules. And then instead of giving Magic a 5, they just said Magic, on the other hand, champion it has high utility and ease of use, but a lower damage rating. It does make sense. Magic, she doesn't hit very hard at all. So these are still a work in progress, but should give a general idea of what you can expect. So that's the pro. That's the biggest pro because not many famous YouTubers emphasize this criteria. I think it's very important uh to for beginners or even intermediate players that this is good thing to have because they have a better understanding which champion is good or bad. And not many people, other than really myself, that try to commit to like trying to help beginners or even average MCOC player, mid-tier players, however you want to call it, to see which champion is good for them. And a lot of these YouTubers, especially the one that are famous, they're like in the top 1%. They're very skilled players, so it kind of like they don't want to talk about the beginners. I really like this, which is really disappointing, you know. Like I wish they did, but they don't. So this is really like, you don't have to like, if you're a beginner, you're going to say which champion is easy to use. So there you go. They say Magic is easy to use. I personally think there are easier champions to use, like Diablo, Angela, King Groot, but they say Magic is easy to use, and I do agree with that as well. So so when you look at that category, it says they grade a champion ease of use, which is really nice thing to have, you know, for beginners, especially for beginners or even mid-tier players or just casual players, that doesn't play this game like more than 3 hours a day. Such a good quality. But here is the biggest con of it all, which a very which is a bit disappointing for me. Further, we are launching a brand new rebalancing initiative for new champions. Here is how it's going to work. Champion balancing will work in a 6-month cadence. So basically, if they think the champion is too OP, within 6 months they could nerf that champion, and that's really disappointing because the biggest reason why I play MCOC is hoping that there's gonna be better champions in the future. Knowing that this cadence of like trying to balance champions, within 6 months, it makes you disappointed because it feels like, if a champion is too OP, they're gonna nerf that champion. It's a bit disappointed knowing that there's not going to be champions that are going to be better than Diablo, King Groot, what else? Kitty Pride or even Hercules. It sucks that these are going to be like, okay, the four champions I mentioned, they're going to be like, those OP champions. They're not going to be any champions better than them in the future. It makes you not want to play MCOC anymore. It's like, okay, I'm kind of like stuck with these champions because I'm not going to see any champions better than them. Maybe there could be champions close to their ability, and then that Kabam might not nerf, but who knows? But that's a bit disappointing overall in my thoughts when it comes to balancing champion, because when I look at MCOC, I'm looking at buff champions and newer champions. Personally, I like buff champions more than newer champions for some reason. I'm like, man, hoping we can get a buff as good as King Groot or Diablo or something like that. If we can get a buff somewhere like King Groot or Diablo, that would be amazing. You know, like that's what I'm looking for. But knowing that they're not gonna have champions that are overpowered like Diablo or King Groot, it's a the it's a bit disappointing in my opinion. What are your thoughts when it comes to the balance update as far as buffing champions, as well as new champions that they could be balancing if they're too OP? Also, another thing that people are upset about is because they're not gonna have any buff champions this month as well. They didn't have a buff champions last month, and they're only gonna do a small update in March. So they're gonna be slowing down the buffs, and I know understand that people are upset about that, but you have to know that get you just be gotta be happy what you get. At least they're buffing champions. Yeah, it's pretty slow, but eventually they're gonna be buffing all the champions that are gonna suck. Eventually King Groot's gonna get a buff, even though he doesn't need it because he's OP already, but you know what I mean. But yeah, so yeah, it's a bit disappointing when it comes to like balancing champions. But the thing that I'm happy about is this, the new rating system. This will help a lot of beginners, you know, to realize which champions are good and which champions are bad because of the ease of use, because they're gonna be looking at champions that are gonna be easy to use, I think. So yeah, this is great for beginners, so because they can adjust to the champions they can pick. They don't have to pick like, you know players that are highly skilled, and it's like, why for somebody who's highly skilled, that champion, like good example would be Quake, it's good for them, or even Ghost, right? They're good for them, but for a beginner, that's not going to be good for them. That champion is not going to be good to them, and they're going to realize, oh shoot, I guess I ranked up the wrong champion for my skill level. So this they can have an idea which champion is good for them, especially for beginners, or in this case even mid-tier players. Those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts when it comes to balancing update? Thank you.